Hello, hi there. Okay, getting set up for our Tuesday call. I'm super excited about this one. Um, I would love to hear if anybody views these recordings later and um, has any questions or anything like that. You can also always post like below where I have the video. Sorry, I'm trying to get resituated. We've been doing a lot of moving, shuffling around my house. So if I look like I'm always in a different spot, that's why. Okay, so today we are live to talk about the adrenals and what even are the adrenals, right? Where to start with this topic? It's a big one. And it's my favorite because this is mostly what I work on with my clients. And the reason being is that our adrenal glands become our primary source of hormones as we get older. So let's start with the what. What are your adrenal glands? So you have two adrenal glands. They are small, little, kind of walnut-sized glands that are located directly above the kidneys. So if you think about your kidneys, if you've ever had like a kidney infection or bladder infection, anything like that, you tend to get that like lower back pain. So above that region there is where your adrenal glands are located. And they're very small, but don't underestimate them. They are very, very powerful. My daughter has that as a sign in her room that has that saying. It's like, though she is little, she is mighty, or though she is small, she's fierce, or something like that. You guys have heard that phrase, but that actually always makes me think of the adrenal glands because they're small, but they're mighty, and they're small, but they're so powerful, so critical to our health. Adrenal glands do a lot of things, but for our purposes today, we are going to focus on their hormone production. So in our reproductive years, right? So puberty up until probably early 40s for most of us, or about early 40s for most of us, your ovaries are going to be the main source of your hormones, of your female hormones. So your estrogen, progesterone, ovaries are our main source. As we move further throughout life and we get closer to the perimenopause transition, which again is that period of time between reproductive years up until menopause. So perimenopause is that transition period in between and can last up to 10 years. So it's a big chunk of your life. So as we move into this phase, your ovaries actually kind of start exiting the building. So they kind of start backing off as far as hormone production. And this is when we really need your adrenal glands to step up their game. And if your adrenals are not primed and ready as this transition occurs, then they're not there to step up their game and they're not there to support your hormone production. And that is really what makes the difference between you going through perimenopause smoothly and feeling good, maybe like your, friend Sally over there, who looks like it's like no big deal for her. She's just flying through perimenopause like it's a breeze, versus maybe you're over here thinking, what the heck? Like, I'm not sleeping. I'm having all these hot flashes. I'm gaining weight. I'm anxious all the time. Why am I like this? And my friend Sally is over there doing great. The difference, more than likely, is in your adrenal glands. So maybe that Sally's adrenal glands are in great shape and she's ready to rock and roll. And it may be that yours are, a little off kilter, which is fixable. So I do want to share that on a positive note with you. Your adrenal glands are something that we can investigate your specific imbalances or specifically what is going on with you. And then we can tailor your treatment plan to that. Okay, so that kind of gives you a little bit of, well, what your adrenals are, or really kind of when they step up into the game. But your adrenal glands produce something called cortisol. So table that for a minute because we're going to talk a lot about that. Your adrenal glands also produce some other hormones like DHEA. That is really helpful to get us through kind of the aging process. DHEA is what people call an anti-aging hormone. So we want our adrenal glands to be producing as much DHEA as they can, again, to help us during this time period. Okay, but the big thing is cortisol. And cortisol is also known as your stress hormone. So that's an easy way to think of it. Think about that as my adrenal glands are making my stress hormones, aka cortisol, to help get me through my day. And you guys have probably heard me talk about this before, but when you wake up in the morning, our cortisol level should be at its highest. And then it slowly decreases throughout the day until it's time to go to bed. Our cortisol at that point should be its lowest, which helps us get a good night's rest. So cortisol production is very much in line with your natural circadian rhythm. So if that gets off kilter, again, we want to get it back on track with that normal circadian rhythm. So producing the most in the morning and then decreasing throughout the day. And by having your cortisol in that normal, nice pattern, not only does it help you manage stress better, but it allows your body to keep doing its thing with its female hormones. Okay. So if your cortisol is out of balance, it's going to directly pull from your female hormone production. Okay. So again, this is why it becomes so important as we get older, because our female hormones from our ovaries are starting to decline. We need our adrenal glands to be in great shape so they can keep producing that DHEA and help balance our normal female sex hormones. If our adrenal glands which produce our stress hormone, cortisol, if our adrenal glands have been overstressed, overtaxed, overworked, your cortisol production is going to be off kilter. And there's a couple different patterns it can follow. But when this happens, again, this pulls away from your production of your female sex hormones. So you've got this going on over here. Your adrenals are, producing all this cortisol. And then you've got your female sex hormones and they're like, wait, make more of me, make more of me. And your body's like, no, we're too busy over here making cortisol. That's kind of an oversimplified description of what happens, but that is really the key point, is when your body is too busy making all this stress hormone, it's not going to make your female hormones the way that you need your body to. That's when you start having symptoms. That's when you start not being able to manage stress, getting very overwhelmed easy, getting very anxious, emotional. This is when the hot flashes kick in and the night sweats, all the sleep disturbances. A big thing that can happen when you have a cortisol imbalance is difficulty sleeping, right? Because I said that your cortisol production follows your nice, circadian rhythm. Drew a blank there for a second. If your cortisol is off, your body is not following that circadian rhythm. So what we see a whole lot of times, is difficulty falling asleep at night or waking up kind of around the 3-4 a.m. hour. And there's a specific reason for that as well. But these are things that we often see with cortisol imbalances. And as we start to support our adrenal glands and help balance its cortisol production, you'll see that your production of your female sex hormones starts to work itself out. Your body is constantly changing, constantly moving every second of every day. If anyone ever tells you that, you're a certain age, you can't change your hormones, you can't do this, it's just not true. Your body is always changing. In fact, we are designed to change and adapt each and every day. So this is a great example of that. So what causes us to have cortisol imbalance, which then worsens our estrogen, progesterone imbalance? Well, stress. And your body doesn't really differentiate between types of stress all that well. So you might be experiencing stress from an illness, or your parents are getting older, or it's a job change, or you have a teen who's struggling, or maybe you're not eating frequently enough and your blood sugar is going too low. Your body sees that as a sign of stress as well. All of these factors coming onto you, telling you there's something stressful coming. You are not in a situation where you can make hormones because we're busy dealing with all of this stress. All of those things make it more difficult for your body to produce estrogen and progesterone the way that it should. So somebody holler if that doesn't make much sense. So as I was saying, the ways that we combat this is to come in and offset that stress signaling that's going to our body as much as possible. And, there are only so many things we can control in life. There are a lot of things that we can't control. And when you have stress coming at you from all these different angles and you just can't control it all that well, you can't control if you lost your job, or maybe you can, but a lot of times you can't. You can't control if, if you have a parent who's suffering from illness and you need to maybe get them a caregiver or something, you can't control these things. So we have to pause and look at what we can control. And one thing we can control is how we train our body to respond to those stressful situations. Your body is very trainable. You are smarter than your body. It's kind of a weird way to say it, but you can trick your body, so to speak, into thinking that things are calm when really maybe it's not always that calm. And what I mean by that is that there are ways that we can send calming signals to our body to say, hey, Lisa, I know you feel like everything is spinning around you, but you're okay. You're going to be okay. And in doing this, you're telling your body, it's okay to make hormones. It's okay to sleep. It's okay to digest your food. It's okay to metabolize these different nutrients. If your body doesn't feel like it is in a safe place to do these things, it won't. And then you end up in a situation where your body is making cortisol. Remember, stress hormone. It's making all this stress hormone, and it's not doing those other things. When your body feels that it is in a stressful state, it will halt all processes. I'll give you an example. I'll use myself. Actually, I did not get a period for, probably about 10 years, from when I was about 18 to, 27, to when I had my first baby. I had so many stress signals coming to my body. I lived in a constant state of fight or flight. And this shut down my body. When my body was experiencing all of this, it did not feel like it was in a good place, in a safe place to make babies, right? So then why would I ovulate and have a period and do these things? Because my body was too busy trying to help me deal with the situation I was in, that it was like, sorry, Lisa, like, we're not going to ovulate. You don't get a period because you are not in a place where you can grow a baby. That same concept applies when we get older, right? So if your body does not think it's in a place where you're going to be fed and you're safe and you're going to take care of yourself, then it is not going to digest your food. It is not going to metabolize. And then what happens? The weight stays on. So if we can get your cortisol balanced out, you will see that weight start to fall. It's not going to be overnight, right? Because nothing that we do here is a quick fix. Quick fixes equals unsustainable. And we don't like that. So we want something that's sustainable for you. So we want to get your cortisol balanced and get that metabolism kicked in again. That is where you're really going to see an impact on your weight when you're in perimenopause. We want to get your cortisol back in line, because if you are producing cortisol like crazy, it's going to make you very agitated. It's going to make you anxious. You're going to have a hard time handling stress because your cortisol is always running high. It's never going back down to that calm place that we want it to be at before we go to sleep at night. Okay. So that's just kind of a little bit of a summary there of kind of what's happening and why. Let me move over to specific questions here. So one question that I have is the tire midsection, weight gain that we hear a lot about in perimenopause and menopause, is that related to cortisol? Yes, 2000%. An increase in cortisol which remember is your stress hormone. So if you're stressed, your body's going to make more cortisol. Cortisol is a fat storage hormone. It tells your body, store this, hold any fat that she consumes, because we are going through some crazy stuff right now. I don't know what's happening. I don't know when she's going to get out of it, but you need to hold on to what you can get, because we're not sure when we're going to get it again. So that's when you see that midsection weight to come on. Cortisol is directly linked to that. And we've got numerous studies and research over the years backing that up. So the answer to that is yes. And then to add on to that, it's not there forever. I've had clients ask me that before. Is this forever? Can I get rid of this? And the answer is absolutely, 2000% you can. It just might not be via the direct mechanisms you're used to. It's going to be more than calories in and calories out to lose that midsection weight gain. It's going to be more than Ozempic or injectables, because those things are ignoring the underlying issue, which is your cortisol imbalance. And by that, I mean, you're constantly stressed out. Your body's always in that fight or flight mode, trying to get you through this day, not knowing what's going to happen next. So your body is always making that cortisol, that stress hormone. When it starts running constantly high like that, then again, we start to lose control of our hormone balance. Our estrogen goes awry, our progesterone goes awry. All of our female sex hormones will be impacted by that. But once you start to balance these things, then you will start to see your cortisol imbalance resolve, and you'll start to see that metabolism kick back in. Cortisol imbalances. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story here, because I don't think they'll mind. But so I'm currently working, two of my clients that I'm working with right now they really couldn't be more opposite if they tried, as far as their lifestyles, their body types, and their cortisol. So, but both of these women have similar symptoms. Both came to me feeling tired all the time. One had really short cycles, like 20-day cycles. Both kind of in that early to mid 40s, early perimenopause range. So both exhausted all the time, both anxious, emotional, both have no libido, both not sleeping well. So very similar overlapping symptoms. But when we tested their cortisol levels and looked at their specific abnormalities, we saw that their cortisol was actually doing completely different things. So in doing that, we were able to move away from the Band-Aid approach that had been applied to both of them, right? They had both been basically prescribed pretty much the same regimen by their healthcare provider. But when we looked at their specific imbalances, we were able to really come in and target their treatment plan towards that. So one of these clients has just running borderline high cortisol levels all day long, like what I was saying before. Her body is just always in that fight or flight mode, and she is just struggling to get out. And it's so cool to see cortisol levels, because I hear these symptoms, I look at people's lifestyles, and then it's like, oh, it completely matches up with what your levels are doing. So she has levels running high all day long. Okay, then let's turn to client B. My other client, very similar age range, very similar symptoms. I ran a 4-point cortisol test on her, which I'll circle back to that in just a moment. I ran a 4-point cortisol on her, and her cortisol is actually completely different. Hers was quite honestly pretty flatlined. So instead of starting out higher when we wake up in the morning and then decreasing throughout the day, hers was running low, really low all day long. What this means, and what I explained to this client as well, is that her adrenal glands had been so taxed and going a mile a minute for so long that they finally are just like, peace out. I'm done here. I can't keep up with this demand anymore. So that is a very different situation. Again, similar people in their presentation, but when you dive deeper, when you're looking at the root causes of how they're feeling and why they're feeling this way, you can see that they actually have two completely different scenarios going on. So we actually implemented pretty different plans for both of these clients because one, right, we need to get her cortisol to where it is at a more, balanced, calm level throughout the day. The other one, we have to back up further than that. We have to kickstart her adrenal glands again, get them up and moving again, and then work to make sure that they're following that normal circadian rhythm. So it's fascinating to see the underlying differences. And I encourage you, if you have been struggling to reach the results that you're wanting, and if you've been trying all the things and you're just not getting to that point and not reaching your goals, if you have not had what's called a 4-point cortisol checked, I highly encourage you to do so. It really is invaluable information. What that does is it looks at your cortisol level at 4 different points throughout the day. This is very different than if you were to go to your doctor and your doctor does blood work and checks your cortisol, because that is going to look at your cortisol level at 1 point in the day, right? Probably you were fasting, probably you went in the morning. It'll give us that 1 point, which is something, I won't discount that information or throw it in the trash or anything. It's something. We want to know what your cortisol is doing at that point. But then what is it doing the rest of the day, right? Like my one client whose cortisol runs high all day long. If we had done that one morning test, would have looked good. Her cortisol starts out highest in the day like it's supposed to. It would have looked great. The missing piece here, what we would have not got if we hadn't done a 4-point test, is we wouldn't have seen that her cortisol is staying high all day long. It's not experiencing that natural lowering that we want it to see throughout the day. And that would have been completely missed with conventional labs. So I share that with you to let you know, if you're struggling with your symptoms and you have not had a 4-point cortisol done, you want to do it because it is truly so helpful and can really make or break your results. That is a test that I offer for my clients. If you are interested in having a 4-point cortisol checked, let me know. It's a really great test. I would order it for you. It comes directly to your house. It's a saliva test kit. So you provide your samples. Basically what you do, it's not a fancy way to say it, but you essentially spit in 4 test tubes at different points throughout the day. You ship your results out. They come straight to me. And then once we have those results, we'll schedule our session. And so we can meet and review those results together. So that is something that you can do very easily out of the convenience of your own home. It takes about 2 weeks for me to get the results. So that's something that can really be a game changer for you in a pretty short time period with not a lot of work from your end. So that is available if need be. Just going to change that viewpoint there a little bit. I know we have someone here with us, Jenna. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Right now, I am just answering some questions that have been sent to me beforehand, but it's good to see you here regardless. And I hope you're doing well. So that is a 4-point cortisol test. If you've had your cortisol checked in the past via conventional blood work and want to send it over to me to get my thoughts, you're welcome to do that as well. I'm always happy to look at your labs. I don't charge anything for lab review appointments or for lab reviews. I like to be a resource to women in this capacity because it can be challenging to get your provider to order the hormone labs tests that you want and need done. So if you have had labs checked and want a second set of eyes on them, feel free to send them over. Okay, so going back to your adrenal glands and your adrenal health. Let's see. Okay, so Jenna posted the question, isn't this part of the Dutch test? I'm considering going that route. Yes. If you have had a Dutch test done or if you've read about it, Dutch testing does include cortisol levels. Jen, I think a Dutch test would be great for you because I know you've already done a lot of digging. Dutch tests give a lot of information. So for those of you who aren't familiar, this is a test that goes really, really deep at looking at a lot of your hormone metabolites. So it's looking at your active hormones, but it also looks at how your body is breaking down your hormones so you can kind of see those metabolic pathways. Dutch tests give a lot of information. Sometimes they give a little bit too much information, in my opinion. So it's great. It's great for the right person, right? Like I said, Jen, I know you've done a lot, so I think it could be helpful for you if you want to dig deeper. But again, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And for those of us who are further along in menopause or closer to menopause, it's not typically as useful because our sex hormone production is changing so much. Now, cortisol, though, you don't get a 4-point cortisol. So you would get a 1 point in time cortisol with that Dutch test, but it's not something you would check throughout the day unless you have maybe some sort of special something set up with your provider and they're doing it differently. But typically it wouldn't be the 4 points. That is a great question. And let's see here. I don't have any other questions for today on adrenal health. So what are some next steps, or, what do you do at this point, or how do you improve your adrenal health? Well, to start with, we want to figure out exactly what's going on. And this is where that 4-point cortisol comes into play. Symptoms are also indicative of what your adrenals are doing. So if that would be our first thing. So if you're having any of these symptoms of cortisol imbalance, things that I've mentioned already, but just to recap, trouble sleeping is a really common one. Weight gain is a really common one. Those are the biggest two. If you're having a lot of difficulty in these areas, the first thing we'll want to do is look at that 4-point test and see what your cortisol is doing throughout the day, because that's going to dictate how we treat it. Are your adrenal glands just shot and we're trying to kind of give them that oomph back? Or are they going a mile a minute trying to keep up with all the stress that they're feeling? That is going to be the make or break component for a lot of women, because if I'm treating you like, or if your doctor, whoever is treating you like woman A, who has high cortisol levels, but you're actually woman B, whose adrenal glands have already kind of checked out of the party and they're not making cortisol the way that they should be, that's going to be a totally different ballgame. Okay. And, I talk about cortisol as far as being the stress hormone. So that makes it really sound like a bad thing, but cortisol is not a bad thing. Cortisol is something that we absolutely need to get through our days, right? We just want it to do what it's supposed to. So we want it to be high in the morning and low before we go to bed. And if it's not, that is going to impact your production of your sex hormones. That is also going to contribute to symptoms such as weight gain and trouble sleeping. So hopefully that kind of connects a few dots there. As always, if you have questions, post them or send them to me. If you're interested in testing, let me know. Or if you just want to chat about it and see if testing is the right next step for you. I'm here for you in all capacities. So I will let you all get back to your day. Jenna, thank you so much for joining us today. And you know how to get a hold of me if you have any questions. Okay. Thanks, ladies. Bye-bye.